This is a brief tutorial of the game Next Station Tokyo as played on Board Game Arena. Next Station Tokyo is the next in line after Next Station London, and it has a lot of similarities. So if you know that game already, I'll have a link to a bookmark in the description that lets you go directly to what the differences are between this and that game. But to start off, I will explain the basics of Next Station Tokyo, how you are drawing various, in this case, subway lines and connecting the map in different ways based on cards that flip over. It is a flip and write. The unique part of this game is that you have 4 different colored pencils. These pencils are represented up here. In the physical game, they are different colors. And everybody starts with a different color. And that color determines which line you're starting at, either the blue, purple, pink, or brown. And so everybody starts from a different spot, builds the line, and then at some point everybody rotates pencils. And so first I will start with the blue, and then next I'll go into the purple line and the brown line, and then the pink line to end. And the way that this typically works is when there's a set of cards. You can see here the cards. There's 11 cards. Some are green and some are pink. They're shuffled each round and flipped over. And a card will have typically a symbol on it, a shape specifically. And what that means is you can start from where your line currently is. In this case, since it's the beginning, we're going to start from our blue spot because that's our blue starting spot. If I were purple, it'd be up here, pink and brown. And then you can connect to a triangle station. Now, there are a couple of rules about connecting. You have to follow these dotted lines. You can never cross over another line that exists. So in this version, there's a central line that's already drawn out for you, but you can't cross over the lines directly. But you can pass through using these stations. So I could go here to here and then on into this area inside. Even though I'm crossing the station, I'm not crossing over the line itself. You cannot come back to a single station with the same line. So I couldn't, with this blue one, I couldn't come around and then come back to the blue. You can never hit a station twice with the same color. And as you start to grow that line, you can only connect it from the ends of the line. So if I have this pentagon here and I go to this triangle here, in fact, let's show how that works here. So I chose that triangle. So now I have a line, and I can either go from this triangle or this pentagon. From either end, I can choose a triangle to connect to. And as in this case, it's both stations, but as I go to another one, let's say I went up here, for example, then I would no longer be able to connect from that middle station, only from the ends of the line. There are exceptions to some of these rules, but that's kind of the main gist of it, is that as you go, you have to go from the line itself, and you have to pick one of those lines to go from. So here I've got now this 3 station line. The next card that flips over, I have to connect either from this triangle or from this triangle. I can't connect it there unless you have this little branch thing that comes up, but that is the one exception. You'll notice that there's one of each color in green and in pink. The colors only matter for ending the round. We'll talk about in a second. There's also these joker cards or wilds and this one came up here, where you can choose any shape, and it lets you choose any shape. You still have to go from the ends, although in this case, because we drew this branch, I could go from the middle part if I wanted to. But you can pick any station to go to for the branch. One of the other rules when connecting is that you can't follow the same route. So from this triangle, I couldn't go to the circle or the square unless it specifically lets me. This game, there's a little bit of a ability to do that, but typically in a normal situation, you would not be able to follow a separate line from a different color. So again, you're making these different connections and so forth, and now I have a 4-line, and this lets me, I can go from here or from here. Now, this wild has this little symbol here. That means I can follow an extra line. That's a bit of a difference in this game than previous ones. Before we get into that, though, let's talk about the scoring, the main scoring. So for each line, there's going to be a multiplication problem that gives you a score for that line. The multiplication is between how many sections or zones that you visit times the number of stations in the zone you visited most with that line. So the zones are designated by these yellow lines. They're a bit different here than in London. It was more of a grid. Here it's a bit of a different design. So this individual stations, those are individually zones. These sections here are zones. Then there's these inner zones here, and then there's one zone in the middle. So look at those yellow lines to designate those varying zones. And basically, you look at how many you visited. So far, I visited this one, and this one. So that's the 3. Then you look for one that you visited the most in the blue line, which currently is this one because I've done it twice, and you multiply those together. So you can see like some of these stations have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You could, if you get some bonuses and things, get up to 6 in this line and multiply that by 4 or 5 there, and you can get 20, 25 points per line if you do it right. And so you're trying to balance both visiting lots of zones, but also having at least one zone where you have quite a few within stations within that zone. So that is the main way of scoring. One of the other ways that you can score are these shared incentives. These are random each game, and they will tell you what they are. In this case, it's wanting you to create an exchange of 4 or more, an interchange. That's when multiple lines touch the same station. So this currently is an interchange of 2, but as I get more lines, I can get 3, 4, or even 5 because there's this extra center line. And if I can get that at least once, then I get that goal and I get 10 points. This one here wants you to collect 4 tourist stamps, and we'll talk about that in a bit on what that means. You also then have a pencil power. This pencil power is a power that you can use one time per line, and it travels with the line. So this blue pencil power basically says, instead of if it flips, instead of this square, if I didn't want to use this square, I could use this pencil power and turn it and pretend it's a joker and just use it for anything. Use it only one time, but you use it in the line, and then that's passed with the pencil to the next player, and they have some other pencil power. It's not always the same. These are randomly assigned to the different colors, but every time somebody does the blue line, they get this power, and they get to use it once during that line. Here you can see we have that exception to be able to mark a lane next to another one. Okay, so those are the main basics of playing Next Station. And you'll do this for 4 rounds, and a round ends when all of the green cards here have been flipped over. So there are 11 cards, but whenever this one flips over, this branching one, you flip that over, you flip over another card and it attaches to that. So you flip this one and then maybe this triangle, and it says, okay, you can branch off of any along your path, but it has to go to a triangle, right? So if I did branch and triangle, then I could go from here to here instead of from the ends. to a triangle. Anyway, you have to see all 5 of the green ones, but as soon as the last green one has been seen, even if some of the pink cards have not been seen, then it goes to the next round. And so that is the 4 rounds, and then whoever scores the most points at the end of the game is the winner. All right, let's talk about some of the differences between Next Station Tokyo and Next Station London. So the first one we mentioned a bit already, but this green central line is already drawn on the sheet for everybody, and it's all the same for each player. And this central line has one other quirk to it, to where you want to try to visit as many of the stations along that line with other lines as possible. Because for every line that you don't visit, you get a negative, or every station along the green line that you don't visit, you get negative 3 points. So right now I have negative 18 because I visited 2, but I have not visited 6. So as I visit more and more of those, I don't lose as many points. So that's part of that central line. The other thing, obviously, the central line lets you do is create extra exchanges. And so in previous games, you would get points for interchanges. This is a little bit different in that you don't get any points for the double interchanges. Like here, this is just a 2-line interchange because of the green and the blue. But if it were a 3-line, you would get 5 points. If it were 4 lines, 15. And if you can do all 5 on a single station, which is difficult to do, but it gets you 30 points. And so that could be something that you look as a goal to do. The interchanges also play a role in this, what's called the tourist stamps. This is different for Tokyo, in that it's wanting you to create interchanges along the outside zones, not the inner ones. So these ones right here, these interchanges that are just 2, they don't get you any tourist stamps. But if you made an interchange in one of these outside sections, then you get a stamp and you get to mark off that section in this area here. So if I were able to make an interchange of at least 2, so I brought another line in and connected it here, for example, then this section here would be colored in, and I would get 5 points. If you do multiple interchanges in the same outside zone, it doesn't give you 5 points for each. Just if you can get one within this zone, it gets 5 points. And if you can get one of these in the corners as an interchange, that gets you 10 points. Now, note that there's only 3 paths that come out of these corners, so it's impossible to do if you don't use these parallel paths bonus when those come through and those jokers. Those will only come up when those jokers, and that is a difference in Tokyo, is that you are allowed to, when these jokers come up, go parallel to another color line. You can't go parallel to your own line, and you can only do it once. So I can, this blue and this green are parallel. I couldn't add a pink parallel line onto it. And the max is 2. But using that, you can have the blue line come here, and then the purple line come around and come here, and then go off some other way. So if you can use that parallel line thing, you can create an interchange within here. That's the only way to do that. But it gets you 10 points, which is significant. So that's how you can get those tourist stamps. And this objective that happened to be in the case here says if you can get 4 tourist stamps or 4 tourist stamps at the end of the game, then you get an extra 10 points for that. All right, let's look at kind of the end game scenario to see what it kind of starts looking like as you get towards that end. Okay, here is almost to the end of the game. I wanted to point out a few things that BGA does to help you out as you are playing. So as you can see up here, the station 3 of 5, that is tracking these green cards and will tell you, there's 3 of 5 that have been shown, and then as soon as the 5th one shows, that's when you pass the cards around. Also, based on what is showing, it will highlight all of the various things that you are able to play from, or the points you're able to play from. So that lets you do that for you, and then it'll show you what you can play to when you click them. So you'll click on one of those, and it'll give you the various options. I'm obviously going to put this one over here because now this gives me a plus or a 4 terminus, right? A brown, green, blue, and then pink, which gets me this goal and 15 points. So that's a big point game right there. And even though I can't move from there once I go there, it's still completely worth it. If for some reason you are unable to go anywhere, you just have to pass. Note that when you branch off of somewhere, you can go from any of the ends, right? So note that this is one of the ends that I can go from, even though this is kind of where my ending branch is. And that's another, these are all of the stamps that I've been able to get through that, and given me 35 points for that. But because this is a branch here, I can go from this end, or I could go from that end if there was a way to do it. You also can see anyone else's maps if you want to look. You can get rid of the scoring if you just want to see the map itself. You just do that clicking. I like to see that just to kind of track, how I'm doing across it. Shows you when you get these scores and such. And as you can see, I go to that, gets me that 15, gets me that extra 10 here, and yeah, you can see as this starts to fill in, you can really rack up some of those points along the way. And that is Next Station Tokyo. You go through all 4 lines, and whoever has the most points at the end of the game is the winner. Hope this was helpful. Thanks.